The safest place for the world is for him to be in prison, away from everyone else.
Lonnie Franklin, also known as the Grim Sleeper, an American father who murdered at least 10 people over a 20-year period.
Franklin is not only evil, he's a monster, just because of the effect he had on so many families.
Hi, I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut. Welcome to Questions With. This week we're speaking with retired Los Angeles detective Clifford Sheppard and retired LAPD officer Paul Coulter. When did you first get involved in this case?
November of 2001, Los Angeles police started a cold case unit for unsolved murders. We had somewhere between 6,000 to 9,000 unsolved murders between 1960 and the present. My boss, David Lampkin, was involved with DNA and sexual assault crimes, so he was very aware of the technology and what was being done at that time in the state of California as far as the creation of the databases. And he thought we could use the technology from today and apply it to those unsolved murders and solve some of them. When I started looking at the cases from the 80s, we had 6 victims, or thought we had 6 victims. We started comparing them and finding out that bullets from this murder also were fired from the same gun in this murder. And by the second or third murder, they were aware that we had somebody out there, apparently a serial murderer, who was killing these girls. I was aware of that, and I said, yeah, as a matter of fact, some cases I was looking at, I can go back and see what we have and then try to get some analysis done, and we'll see.
What did you first notice about the murders in the 80s?
We had a couple of problems. The major problem was cocaine. Rock cocaine was rampant. The cocaine seemed to bring out the worst in a person, rage, and especially with some men, that they just decided that they had to murder somebody, usually the victim they just had sex with.
In the 1980s, there were a lot of young ladies being found murdered in South Central LA. Those were separated out from the large numbers of women because they had all been shot in the chest. And ballistically, they had all been shot with the same .25 caliber. This little series of young ladies that had been shot with were singled out, and they were labeled as the .25 caliber killings.
And that began with the investigation into Lonnie Franklin, not knowing it was Lonnie Franklin at the time. But it began with a woman named Deborah Jackson.
She was found in an alley, I think, by a couple young kids walking their dogs. She'd been shot in the chest, which all of these victims had all been shot in the chest. All of these young gals were found in alleyways. She was the first known victim, August 10th of 1985. Henrietta Wright was the second known victim in this .25 caliber series. She had also been shot with a .25 caliber handgun. She'd been shot in the chest, which was the similarities to Deborah Jackson. The ballistics came back in 85 that it was the same weapon.
When I looked at these cases, I saw that 2 of the women had DNA evidence. Sexual assault kits had been collected, and they were analyzed, and there was DNA present. So with that, I mean, okay, great. Now we can get somewhere, I thought. So I request analyzation on the evidence. And late 2004, I was notified that 2 of the victims from that series matched a woman who was murdered in 2003 by the name of Valerie McCorvey.
Valerie McCorvey was found in the roadway adjacent to an alley near a school. She is found fully clothed with her breasts exposed, and her cause of death was ligature strangulation, and it appeared she was just dumped there in the roadway.
The detectives had thought this guy who was murdering this group in the 80s, between about 1982 and 1988, that he had stopped for whatever reasons. He was in prison, he left the state, decided to quit. But with that analysis and revealing that there was another victim more current, he's still out there. The problem was his DNA was not in the database. We just knew the DNA connected those three or four murders at that time. And then as the months passed, more murders were added. And I think one was from the city of Inglewood, which was Princess Bartholomew. He was the next victim that we were aware of, about 2005. So our problem was he's not identified.
What new evidence reignited the investigation?
We had one survivor who the man had shot in 1988, left her for dead, and she was able to crawl away to a friend's house, actually, and seek help. With that, we were able to get a description of a black man in his 20s. It was nothing unique, but it was a start. With that and the DNA, we started reviewing cases, started making contacts, re-interviewing people, looking for anything that could identify a particular person. The problem was most of our victims were unwitnessed murders. They were the only one who saw that, except for the murderer. Initially, when I was looking at the first 6 murders, we were looking for other murders that could be involved. And then we had to find cases that could be. We had to see what the evidence was. And if the evidence had not been submitted for analyzation, we had to have that analyzed. And then we were looking for somebody who fit the vague profile of a black man in South Los Angeles who was violent with women. Janisha Peters is one of the last victims that we're aware of. We know she was alive the night of New Year's Eve, 2006, 7. Then her body is found New Year's Day in a trash bag in a dumpster around 94th Street in Western, which is near where Bernita Sparks was found. What we learned later on, he would either find his victims off of Western or he would leave their bodies along Western.
He was always in that little bubble down there off of Western Avenue.
Larkeisha Jefferson was last seen alive with her sister that last saw her in her apartment, which is located right there at 81st and Western. Larkeisha's body is found, I think, down near 104th in Normandy, a couple miles away, but it's all right there. All the victims or most of the victims are found up and down Western. This guy that lives right there, he's probably going to be our murderer.
Detectives needed to find the killer fast before yet another innocent victim was killed. Before we continue with this video, please do click that thumbs up icon and remember to subscribe as it really helps the channel. But for now, let's get back to the case of the Grim Sleeper. How was the killer identified?
Well, with Anitra, she was walking down one of the streets in the area when this orange Pinto pulled up, and he was persistent in trying to get her into the vehicle. Finally, she decided, okay, I'm going to a party. He says, hey, well, can I go? And eventually, his persistence paid off. She gets in the vehicle. And as she's riding, he pulls down 81st Street and pulls over to the curb and tells her, hey, I have to go get some money. So she says, okay. She waits in the vehicle while she sees him go across the street to a residence. He comes back, gets in the car, and as he turns onto Western to go to this party, all of a sudden, she says she felt a pain in her chest. And she's like, hey, did you just shoot me? And he's like, shut up, bitch, I'll shoot you again. He drives around. He dumps her in a front yard of a residence. It turns out to be a lady that she knows, and he sexually assaults her. I mean, luckily, she survives. She's taken to the County UCLA hospital, and she goes into surgery, and the bullet is removed. Turns out it's the same gun used in the 85 or 80 series, the 25 caliber. Her description of what happened was like the framework of what happened to all these other victims. All of these other victims from the 85 series are all shot in the left side of the chest. The trajectories are all left to right. They're all front to back. They are all slightly downward. She had been fully clothed when she was found, just like the other victims. So now the detectives in the 25 calibers had not only a surviving victim that could tell them what happened, they had a description of his vehicle, which was the orange Ford Pinto. Composites were done of the suspect. Things were going on. They had a location that they thought. A search warrant was done on the residence that Anitra thought she saw him go to. And it turned up nothing. Turns out, once you know who your suspect is, that Franklin lived 3 doors down. That's how close they were to him in 1988. 3 doors away is where he actually lived. They set up surveillance units across the street in a gas station to watch 81st looking for an orange Pinto that never materialized. The task force did searches of every vehicle citation, every field interview card, every crime report, things of that nature, trying to identify the driver of this orange Pinto, and they were striking out. It never came back. And in 2010, it was the idea of Jill Spriggs, who at that time was in charge of all the crime labs in the state of California for DOJ. She had come up with the idea of doing this familial search and based it basically off of this case, trying to identify the suspect. The sperm frag recovered from the oral swab from Barbara Ware was sent to Cellmark, where the male profile was separated from our DNA profile. And then they searched the convicted felon database in California for male relatives of your suspect. It turns out Lonnie's son, Christopher, was arrested in 2009 for a gun narcotics charge in the city of Inglewood. He pled guilty to a felony, the gun charge, therefore making him a convicted felon. And he had to be swabbed, and his sample got uploaded into the databank, convicted felon databank. And in 2010, when we reran it, by then, now we hit on a male relative.
They did some tests within the department. Initially, they looked at a couple hundred profiles. Ultimately, we got a match to a son. And we were warned, you do not arrest the son. You do not talk to the son. But your murderer is someone who is related to this man. So it could be his father, could be an uncle, could be a brother. We have to find out. They did initially some work on him. They came up with some family information. And when we looked at his father's address, it's him. His father lived right there on 81st Street. Anitria Washington told us she was taken to 81st Street. The guy got out of the car to get something. He went to his house. Now, the next problem was we have to obtain a DNA sample from him and then compare that to the murders to make sure it is him. So we have surveillance teams that were put on him immediately. They were watching him 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the first few days, we were coming up empty. The surveillance teams were watching him, and he's not doing anything unusual. He was seen getting into his car and driving up and down Western one night, which presented a problem to us. We can't let him take another woman into a car and drive off with her. We can't have him murder somebody right under our nose. I think it was the next day he and some people went out to a pizza store. I had a pizza, and he left some behind. One of the surveillance team members acted as if he was working at that store, cleaned up the plate and on some of the discarded pizza, brought it back with him. We had it analyzed, and it took about 3 days, but with that, we had him. The DNA matched perfectly, and that's what we needed. Now we know Lonnie Franklin is our man.
How did you arrest Franklin?
Metro units were ordered to go in and scoop him up and then take him downtown for an interview. And he did. He was surprised. Caught him totally off guard. He was interviewed, and Our detectives were versed at that time on the victims and had photographs and everything, and confronted him with all the victims, and that he denied, of course, knowing or killing anyone. When we arrested him, we already had planned to conduct a search of his residence. We'd be negligent if we didn't. We're looking for weapons. We're looking for clothing that he may have kept. These guys, some of them have trophies. Some of them keep items of jewelry or other things they take from the victims. So a search warrant was prepared, and that morning, the morning of his arrest, was served on his residence. We wanted to go through the house. We wanted to go through everything that he had. We're looking for any evidence that we can that will connect him to these murders too. What we found almost immediately, we found there was a firearm in one of the jacket pockets. It was in a closet. It was the right caliber in that. We had teams going through the garage. While going through the garage, we found photographs. Some of the photographs he had hidden behind a wall. We found a Polaroid picture of Anitria seated, bleeding from her chest, seated in a seat of a car, probably the Pinto. Confirmed her story. Photographs of other women. We found identification for 2 girls that are still missing. Now, they were reported missing by their families. We have never found them. We haven't found their bodies. Are they dead? Most likely they are. By now, we should have found them, or they should have been approaching their families.
When we interviewed Franklin, we're confronting him with the DNA on each victim, and one you could maybe explain, 2, maybe coincidence. When you start getting into those numbers, then when you find that Polaroid photo of Anitra Washington, there is no way you're going to explain that away. So when we saw that, it was like, stop everything. We want every photograph that we have checked for biological evidence. As I took each 8x10 photograph, put in front of him, he denied knowing any of those victims.
This young lady, her name is Henrietta Wright. Go ahead, take a close look.
No recollection at all.
No recollection, or you just don't know?
I don't know her. But ugly, I don't know her. So,
what?
But ugly, I don't know her. Sorry, I don't know her.
And of course, these photos had been on billboards up and down Western Avenue. They had been in the news. I mean, I don't know how he missed it, but he just denied knowing them. I think he mentioned one was butt ugly, which the family didn't really appreciate during the trial, which I understand.
What did you learn about Franklin's background and prior offences?
Lonnie was known as the little mechanic for the neighborhood, and he would buy cars from the salvage yards, fix them, and then flip them, with never really registering them in his names. He would usually keep cold plates and use those on those cars. And I think that's where he got caught a few times. Lonnie's prior criminal history consisted mainly of auto theft, receiving stolen property, some assaults. He grew up not far from his residence in South Central. He joined the military, was in the U.S. Army in the late 70s. And we did find through his military records that his activities with the women started even then. Him and 2 other GIs kidnapped some young ladies, or attempted to kidnap one off a trolley stop in Germany. And then they did kidnap another young lady and gang raped her, took photos, just like he did in the 80s.
How did Franklin's knowledge of the city help him avoid detection for so long?
When he was released, he came back to Los Angeles, and that's when he met his wife. And that was the late 70s, early 80s. Now, that period we don't know a lot about. He's working as a mechanic or a mechanic's assistant for the city of Los Angeles. He's actually working in the police station downtown in Central Division. He left the police department, still working for the city, and went to the sanitation department, they paid better. And that entailed going up and down alleyways, picking up that time the trash cans and dumping them into their vehicle. At some point, he went off on a injury and was able to receive a disability pension. So he didn't work for years. That would never worked again, I think, except around his house, in the neighborhood for his friends and neighbors repairing cars. We had no complaints from anyone that we saw. We found no reports of him assaulting any other women. People that we interviewed in the neighborhood just said, no, he's a quiet guy and he's pretty much stays to himself.
What made Franklin one of the most evil killers?
The reason I think Lonnie David Franklin is one of the most prolific serial killers is because of the sheer numbers, not only that we know about, but that we don't know about because they ended up in landfills. I don't know that we'll ever know how many he actually killed. In my belief, yeah, there are other victims. I mean, again, it would be arrogant for us to say we know of all the people he killed. And yeah, I'm sure there are other ones.
Lonnie Franklin and evil. Can you go out and murder, 15, 20 people and not be? Exactly why he chose these particular victims to murder, I don't know. It's obvious to me that he doesn't care about anybody else. He's somebody, he'd be up there as far as with Hannibal Lecter, as far as someone who's evil and someone you should fear. You're never going to be able to change him. The safest place for the world is for him to be in prison, away from everyone else.
On June the 6th, 2016, Lonnie Franklin was convicted of 10 murders and sentenced to death. Less than 4 years later, on March the 28th, 2020, the 67-year-old was found dead in his cell. Franklin's cause of death has never been publicly released. Thanks for watching this deep dive into the crimes of Lonnie Franklin. For more content like this, give us a thumbs up below and hit that subscribe button. Make sure to tell us in the comments which killer you'd like to see next. I'm Nick from True Crime Uncut. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.